If you want a productive organic garden, then calcium's a very important mineral for strong, healthy plants. After watching this episode, you're never going to throw away eggshells again. I'm Tony O'Neill and this is UK Here We Grow, and on this channel we deal with all things gardening, poultry keeping and beekeeping. If you want that perfect garden to relax in, or you just want to grow your own nutrient dense foods, then start now by clicking the subscribe button and the bell icon to be notified each time I release new content just like this. Every day millions of people are eating eggs for breakfast, lunch and dinner, but most are only ever concerned about the internals of the egg. However, eggshell is a really important resource in the garden. Did you know that eggshells are made up of around about 95% calcium carbonate, and they also contain other ingredients like sulfur, magnesium, potassium and sodium, along with other trace minerals. And they also contain around about 5% organic matter. Now, the organic matter may surprise you. It's not mentioned in many gardening texts, but did you know that the white skin on the inside of the egg contains organic matter, which is mainly made up of proteins, which provides nitrogen to any compost you add it to. Now, we're all aware that plants need nitrogen, potassium and phosphorus in order to grow, but they also need calcium and other trace minerals in order to be healthy and prevent disease like blossom end rot in tomatoes, eggplant and peppers, but more on that later. So I'm here to tell you, don't throw your eggshells away at home. Instead, store them in some sort of container like this, break them up, and then when you're ready, you can give them a wash and place them onto a tray and put them in the oven at around about 170 degrees Fahrenheit for about half an hour. And what this does is quite an important step. It actually kills any bacteria that may be on these eggshells, like salmonella, which could make you sick. So there are many uses for eggshells in the garden. Some work, some don't, and some are just myths. And I'll continue on that in a moment, but first we need to continue the prep of these eggshells. The first way is, when you're opening your eggs, just cut the top off the egg, and be careful when you do this. And what it allows you to do is you can poke a hole in the bottom of the egg and use it to put in some seed start mix and some seeds. And this is a fantastic way to use it as a little container and get children interested in growing in the garden. Simply place the eggshells back into the cardboard egg box and fill each eggshell with compost and sow your seed. This will then start the plants off to seedling stage, where they can be planted out into bigger containers or the ground. But when you're doing this, ensure to break that eggshell from around the plant so that the roots can penetrate down into the ground, or the seedling will die off. So another thing you can do with your eggshells is to put them into a coffee grinder, a blender or even a food processor and grind them down into a powder. And then this is perfect to add directly to your soil or to your compost, where they will break down and add or incorporate calcium into your chosen soils. Or you could even add them to your worm bins, because worms have a gizzard much like chickens, and they need a grit in order for them to break down all the vegetable scraps that you're adding. And by adding the powders to the worm bins, the worms can use them, and they're also supercharging your worm castings with calcium. So a few other uses that you could use these eggshells for would be to put them down for the birds that they could then use as a grit. The chickens would be ideal, so you can put it down, the chickens would use that in their crop as a grit, and that would also be passed out with their manure, which you would then add to the garden. Another few uses would be you could put it on top of pots as a decorative substrate. And one last thing is, if you ground it down to a complete powder like I suggested earlier on, then you could add this to the bottom of planting holes, and tomatoes are very good for this. So if you put eggshells in the bottom of your tomato planting hole, that will really help with that. A massive myth, like I've just discussed, is placing eggshells around your tender plants like lettuce. And the idea is that you would sprinkle eggshells around the lettuce, and that would prevent the slugs from climbing over and nibbling away at your lovely crop of lettuce. This is just a massive myth. Like I said, guys, I've seen slugs climbing over these time and time again, and it just doesn't work. And the reason for this is that the slug's mantle puts out this thick mucous membrane, and I believe that that totally protects it from the sharp edges of the eggshell. And you may have seen them crawling over grit and things like that. It just leaves a slimy trail behind and nothing happens to that slug. But if you stay tuned, coming up in the next few weeks, I do have an episode of some surefire ways that will really help you to battle the slugs. Earlier on, we touched on blossom end rot, and there are only two reasons for blossom end rot. The first one is a calcium deficiency, but if you're putting calcium into your soil, then there should be no reason for this. And to be honest with you, the calcium in the soil you'll probably find is never too low anyway. It's more likely that irregular watering is the cause, because what happens here is that the roots dry up and they rot off, and the fibrous root system just can't pull in enough calcium that's already in the soil for the plant to benefit and utilize. So what you have to do at this point is continue to get your watering done properly, and then make sure that you've added the calcium as we've spoken about via the eggshells, and you should be perfect, because what will happen is the plant will recover, it'll send out new fibrous root systems, and they will take up that calcium. What you can do in the meantime is to make a calcium spray. Furthermore, blossom end rot isn't a disease, it's more a factor of the conditions around the soil area. So once you're got the watering and the calcium right, the plant will send out new shoots and continue to thrive. So the fruits that are affected, you can just cut them off, and any future fruits will come back properly and they'll have no issues at all. Everything we have just discussed can take some time for the plant to send out some new fibrous roots, and if your plant is sickly, there is a way to speed this process up. Now what you can do is take equal amounts, so a tablespoon of eggshells, a tablespoon of white vinegar, and mix them, and this will make a calcium carbonate. Now calcium carbonate is literally just a liquid calcium, and you can add this to 5 litres of water, give it a good stir up, and once you have that, that is your concentrate, your condensed amount, and then you can add a good cupful or 2 cupfuls of calcium carbonate to every 10 litres. If you've got a 5 litre watering can, just add 1 cupful, and then you can literally just spray this, put it into a sprayer and spray this over your tomatoes, and this will be absorbed by the tomatoes leaves, and that will put calcium into your plants in the duration while you're waiting for the plants to recover. Now you can spray your tomatoes once a week with this just to give them a boost and to ensure that you never get any problems with things like blossom end rot. Question of the day: how many of you guys have used eggshells in the garden before? Let me know in the comments below, and what you did with them. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, and if you enjoyed this video you can subscribe here, and once you've done that you can continue the rest of the journey here by clicking one of these videos. I'm Tony O'Neill, this is UK Here We Grow, and remember folks, you reap what you sow. I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.